It's 10:30 p.m. aboard the luxurious Russian cruise liner, Admiral Nakhimov. Under the tranquil glow of the Black Sea, 888 passengers and 346 crew enjoy an evening of celebration. Jazz music fills the air, and moonlit waves create the perfect backdrop for a memorable voyage. Yet, just beyond the horizon, an unseen danger approaches. A distant ship, its lights twinkling innocently, hides an unstoppable force of destruction. No warnings are heeded, no alarms raised. In mere minutes, the Admiral Nakhimov will face a disaster so sudden and devastating that it will leave hundreds trapped in its iron grip, never to surface again. Will anyone survive the horror that's about to unfold? The calm waves of the Black Sea shimmered under the moonlit sky on August 31, 1986. On board the Admiral Nakhimov ship, laughter echoed, music played, and passengers embraced the joyous atmosphere of a warm summer night. Unbeknownst to them, a silent shadow loomed on the horizon, a freighter destined to cross paths with their vessel. In just 7 horrifying minutes, the lively cruise ship transformed into a cold, watery grave, marking one of the most haunting maritime disasters in modern history. The story of the Admiral Nakhimov ship begins long before that fateful night. Originally constructed in 1925 in Germany as the SS Berlin, this vessel embodied the post-World War I era of maritime engineering, practical, reliable, yet luxurious. With its modest size and dependable build, the ship served as a German ocean liner before transitioning into a hospital ship during World War II. After the war, it was salvaged by the Soviet Union, modernized, and renamed in honor of Admiral Pavel Nakhimov, a celebrated Russian naval commander. As the flagship of Soviet cruising, the Admiral Nakhimov cruiser became a symbol of pride, offering working-class citizens a rare taste of luxury through subsidized cruises. But the ship's celebrated history was marred by aging infrastructure and overlooked safety protocols. By the 1980s, the Admiral Nakhimov modernization was minimal, leaving her vulnerable to unforeseen dangers. On the night of her tragic end, the ship carried 888 passengers and 346 crew, many unaware of the impending collision that would sink their vessel with devastating speed. The collision claimed the lives of 423 people and left behind an enduring legacy of grief and unanswered questions. The Admiral Nakhimov's sinking is not just a tale of loss but a stark reminder of the human cost of negligence. Lessons learned from this disaster shaped maritime safety protocols, yet the rusting wreck of the Admiral Nakhimov ship disaster beneath the Black Sea serves as a chilling monument to the fragility of life at sea. The Admiral Nakhimov ship, a vessel that now rests beneath the Black Sea, began its life in a very different time and place. Constructed in 1925 in Germany and originally christened the SS Berlin, the ship was built by the Bremer Vulcan shipyard for the North German Lloyd Company. This ocean liner was part of a series of post-World War I efforts to rebuild Germany's merchant fleet. Though modest in size at 15,000 gross registered tons, the ship was a dependable and efficient design, a hallmark of German shipbuilding of the era. The ship's early years were marked by luxury voyages across the Atlantic, providing a taste of modern ocean travel to its passengers. However, as the clouds of World War II gathered, the SS Berlin underwent a dramatic transformation. By the late 1930s, it was conscripted into the Admiral Nakhimov battlecruiser fleet of Nazi Germany. During the war, it served primarily as a hospital ship, aiding wounded soldiers and refugees during major military operations. Its role in Operation Hannibal, one of the largest sea evacuations in history, was particularly notable. Despite its efforts to save lives, the ship suffered immense damage, sinking after striking a mine in January 1945. Following the war, the ship was salvaged by Soviet divers and underwent extensive repairs. By 1949, It was reborn as the Admiral Nakhimov cruiser, named after the legendary Russian naval hero Admiral Pavel Nakhimov. The ship joined the Black Sea Steamship Company's fleet, becoming a symbol of post-war Soviet pride. It offered subsidized cruises to working-class families, granting them a rare escape from their daily lives. Its voyages across Soviet-friendly ports on the Black Sea made it a beloved icon, celebrated for its elegance and the memorable experiences it provided. Despite its illustrious reputation, the Admiral Nakhimov modernization was minimal over the decades. By the 1980s, its ventilation systems were failing, and its safety measures were alarmingly outdated. Yet, passengers continued to flock to the ship, drawn by the nostalgia of its grandeur. Tragically, this once proud liner's journey ended in one of the deadliest maritime accidents of the 20th century, cementing its legacy as a haunting chapter in maritime history. August 31, 1986, began as a picture-perfect day in the Black Sea port city of Novorossiysk. Hundreds of excited passengers boarded the Admiral Nakhimov, blissfully unaware of the tragedy that lay ahead. As the sun set, the ship's departure was marked by a festive atmosphere. Families waved goodbye from the decks, music filled the air, and the ship's lights sparkled like jewels on the darkening water. This iconic Soviet cruise liner was embarking on another journey, carrying 888 passengers and 346 crew members to their next destination. However, beneath this cheerful exterior, a series of errors would soon unfold. Around 10 p.m., the Admiral Nakhimov began its journey out of port, crossing paths with the freighter Pyotr Vasilyev, a vessel carrying thousands of tons of barley. Despite clear instructions from port authorities for the Pyotr Vasilyev to yield, miscommunication and overconfidence on both sides set the stage for disaster. The freighter continued on its course, its looming silhouette unnoticed by many aboard the cruise ship. At 11:10 p.m., the freighter struck the Admiral Nakhimov's starboard side with devastating force. The collision tore a gaping hole into the ship's hull, allowing seawater to rush in at an alarming rate. The lights aboard the Nakhimov flickered and then failed completely, plunging the ship into darkness. Panic erupted among the passengers. With no clear instructions, many rushed aimlessly through the ship's labyrinthine corridors, while others desperately clung to loved ones. The ship's aging design further accelerated its doom. Portholes, left open to let in the summer breeze, became deadly conduits for the rising water. Within minutes, the vessel listed heavily to one side. Lifeboats couldn't be deployed in time, and passengers were forced to leap into the oil-slicked, frigid water. Some clung to debris, while others succumbed to exhaustion and the chaotic melee. By 11:20 p.m., just 7 minutes after the collision, the Admiral Nakhimov had disappeared beneath the waves. Of the 1,234 souls on board, 423 perished in the disaster, leaving behind a haunting legacy of unheeded warnings and human error. The eerie silence that followed was broken only by the cries of survivors in the water, a grim testament to one of the Soviet Union's most tragic maritime accidents. For the survivors of the Admiral Nakhimov disaster, that fateful night remains etched in their memories, a haunting blend of chaos, resilience, and heroism. Among them was Leonid Toyanda, a 35-year-old Soviet bank employee who had boarded the ship as a reward for his hard work. That evening, Toyanda and his colleagues were enjoying the festive atmosphere on the upper deck, unaware that their lives were about to be turned upside down. When the collision occurred, Toyanda described the initial impact as a deep blow to his back, followed by the eerie sensation of the ship listing heavily. As panic set in, Toyanda and others scrambled for safety, eventually leaping into the cold, oil-slicked water below. Toyanda narrowly escaped drowning as fellow passengers in the water clung desperately to him in a bid for survival. A sailor aboard the Nakhimov, Sergei Sapoznikov, became a beacon of calm amidst the pandemonium. Realizing that no alarms were sounded to guide the panicked passengers, Sapozhnikov took it upon himself to assist those around him. Despite the ship's rapidly worsening tilt, he helped others navigate the ship's labyrinthine corridors, guiding as many as he could to the deck before the vessel went under. Navy cadets aboard for training also displayed extraordinary bravery. Struggling against the ship's heavy lists, they worked tirelessly to free the lifeboats. Despite their efforts, the listing ship rendered the task nearly impossible. Undeterred, they began tossing life rings, flotation devices, and anything that could float into the water to give passengers a fighting chance. Tragically, not all acts of bravery ended in survival. Alexander Delensky, an electrician on the Nakhimov, prioritized his family's safety as the ship sank. After guiding his wife Elena and their infant son Denis to the deck, he placed Denis in a floating raft, only to watch in horror as a lifeboat fell from its davits and crushed the raft. Overcome with despair, Delensky's fate remains a poignant symbol of the sacrifices made that night. For the crew of the Pyotr Vasilyev, the disaster was equally harrowing. Captain Viktor Tkachenko, realizing the enormity of the collision, ordered his crew to lower motor launches into the water to assist survivors. Many freighter crew members braved the freezing sea, pulling passengers from the water and offering those blankets and first aid. Ultimately, 836 people survived the disaster, their lives a testament to resilience and the indomitable human spirit. But for each survivor, the memory of the screams, the oil-slicked water, and the sinking ship serves as a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the thin line between survival and loss. The sinking of the Admiral Nakhimov was a disaster that could have been prevented, yet a combination of human error, negligence, and miscommunication sealed the ship's fate. The investigation that followed revealed a series of critical failures that ultimately led to the collision with the freighter Pyotr Vasilyev. At the heart of the tragedy was a breakdown in communication between the two ships. Port authorities had instructed the Pyotr Vasilyev to yield and allow the Admiral Nakhimov to pass. Despite acknowledging the instructions, the freighter's captain, Viktor Tkachenko, failed to alter his course or speed. This critical delay left the ships on a collision path. On board the Admiral Nakhimov, the situation was no better. Captain Vadim Markov retired to his cabin shortly after departure, leaving First Officer Alexander Chudnovsky in command. Chudnovsky, unsure of the freighter's intentions, hesitated to take decisive action to avert the collision, relying instead on radio assurances that the freighter would yield. When the two ships collided, the aftermath was swift and catastrophic. The Admiral Nakhimov sank in just 7 minutes, claiming 423 lives. Survivors described the chaos on board as no alarms were sounded, and the crew failed to provide clear instructions. Open portholes, a consequence of the ship's inadequate ventilation system, accelerated the flooding, leaving passengers with no time to escape. The Soviet government launched a comprehensive investigation in the aftermath. Both Captain Tkachenko and Captain Markov were arrested and held accountable. Tkachenko was criticized for his failure to yield despite repeated warnings, while Markov faced charges for abandoning the bridge and failing to ensure his crew was prepared for emergencies. First Officer Chudnovsky was also reprimanded for his inaction. Both captains received 15-year prison sentences. The disaster highlighted glaring deficiencies in maritime safety protocols. In its wake, Soviet authorities introduced stricter regulations, including mandatory safety drills, improved communication standards, and modernized evacuation procedures. These measures sought to ensure that such a tragedy would never be repeated. Yet, the lessons came too late for the passengers of the Admiral Nakhimov. The rusting wreck beneath the Black Sea stands as a somber reminder of the cost of human error and the importance of vigilance in the face of danger. The sinking of the Admiral Nakhimov was more than just a maritime disaster, it was a human tragedy of staggering proportions. In just 7 minutes, 423 lives were lost, passengers and crew members who had embarked on what should have been a joyous voyage. Entire families perished in the chaos, leaving an indelible scar on their loved ones and communities. Survivors who escaped the ship spoke of haunting memories, the screams of those trapped below deck, the oil-slicked waters illuminated only by the moon, and the eerie silence that followed when the ship finally disappeared beneath the waves. For the families of the victims, the loss was devastating. Many waited at the docks, desperate for news, only to learn that their loved ones would never return. The grief extended beyond individuals. Whole communities mourned the loss of colleagues, neighbors, and friends who had been aboard the ill-fated ship. Memorials were held, and for years afterward, families would gather at the port in Novorossiysk to honor the lives lost in the disaster. Culturally, the tragedy of the Admiral Nakhimov left a profound impact. Within Russia, it became a symbol of systemic negligence and the human cost of poor governance. The disaster occurred in a year already marred by significant Soviet crises, including the Chernobyl nuclear accident just months earlier. This compounded the perception of a government unable to protect its people, fueling demands for greater transparency and accountability. A memorial site in Novorossiysk now serves as a tribute to the victims, with ceremonies held each year to commemorate the tragedy. At exactly 11:20 p.m. the time the ship sank, sirens sound, and the area is illuminated, ensuring the memories of those lost are never forgotten. Globally, however, the disaster remains lesser known. Overshadowed by other events of the era and underreported in Western media, the story of the Admiral Nakhimov has largely faded into obscurity outside of Russia. Yet, for maritime historians and survivors, it remains a poignant reminder of the fragility of life at sea and the importance of vigilance, preparation, and responsibility. The rusting wreck of the Admiral Nakhimov beneath the Black Sea continues to stand as both a warning and a memorial to the lives lost that fateful night. The sinking of the Admiral Nakhimov stands as a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of the sea and the dire consequences of human error. This tragedy could have been prevented had communication been clear, safety protocols followed, and proper precautions taken. It underscores the importance of vigilance, preparedness, and accountability in maritime operations, lessons etched painfully in the memories of survivors and the families of those lost. As we reflect on this disaster, we must also honor the victims whose lives were cut short and the survivors who endured unimaginable terror. Their bravery, as they fought against the odds to escape, and the heroism of those who selflessly tried to save others, remain a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The stories of those like Leonid Toyanda, who survived against all odds, and the crew members who worked tirelessly to assist passengers amidst chaos, remind us of the power of courage even in the face of overwhelming adversity. Today, the wreck of the Admiral Nakhimov lies in silence beneath the Black Sea, a rusting monument to lives lost and lessons learned. It is not just a shipwreck, but a symbol, a warning that safety at sea should never be compromised. The annual memorials held in Novorossiysk keep alive the memory of those who perished and serve as a collective pledge to prevent such tragedies in the future. As we conclude this story, one question lingers: how many lives might be saved if we always acted with foresight and urgency when danger looms? The sinking of the Admiral Nakhimov is a haunting reminder that in moments of crisis, even seconds can mean the difference between life and death. It compels us to ask ourselves, are we doing enough to ensure that no ship, no crew, and no passenger ever have to face such a fate again? The story of the Admiral Nakhimov is a chilling reminder of the power of the sea and the importance of remembering the past. If this tale moved you, Don't let it end here. Share this video to honor the victims and spread awareness of maritime safety. Subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories of mystery and tragedy, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. What are your thoughts on this tragedy? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective.